When you walk through the grand halls of a natural history museum, you feel a sense of completion. You see the towering skeleton of a Diplodocus, the terrifying skull of a T-Rex, and the intricate plates of a Stegosaurus. It feels as though we have mapped out the Mesozoic era. It feels as though the book of the past is written, and we are just filling in the footnotes. But that feeling is a lie. A beautiful, scientific, but dangerous lie. The reality is that our entire understanding of the age of dinosaurs is based on a fraction of a percent of what actually lived. Imagine trying to understand the entirety of modern Earth, from the Amazon rainforests to the peaks of the Himalayas, by looking at 3 or 4 skeletons found in a desert in Arizona. It's impossible. We are living in the shadow of ghost dinosaurs. These are the species that lived for millions of years, evolved incredible features, dominated entire continents, and then vanished without leaving a single atom of bone in the fossil record. Today, we aren't talking about the dinosaurs you know. We are talking about the ghost lineages, the silent majority of evolution that was erased by time, chemistry, and the very movements of the Earth itself.
To become a fossil is to win the ultimate cosmic lottery. The odds are stacked against every living thing from the moment it takes its last breath. To understand the dinosaurs we haven't found, we must first understand why the ones we have found are such miracles. The anatomy of decay. The moment a dinosaur died, the erasers of nature went to work. Scavengers. Before a bone can turn to stone, it has to survive the teeth. Small theropods, insects, and prehistoric mammals would strip every ounce of flesh. The sun and rain. If a carcass lies on the surface, UV radiation and moisture break down the collagen that holds bone together. Within decades, a blink of an eye in geological time, the bones crumble into dust. The pH factor. Soil acidity is the silent killer of history. In places like tropical rainforests, the soil is so acidic that it dissolves bone faster than it can be buried. This is why we have almost zero dinosaur fossils from the lush inland jungles of the Cretaceous, places that were likely the most biodiverse regions on the planet. The burial requirement. To be preserved, an animal must be buried almost immediately. This requires specific geological traps. River deltas and floodplains. This is where we find most fossils. An animal drowns in a flood, is covered by silt, and protected from oxygen. Volcanic ash, the Pompeii effect. A sudden eruption coats the land, sealing life in a tomb of silica. Sandstorms. Sudden collapses of dunes can trap small to medium animals in an airtight environment. The problem, most of the Earth's surface is not a river delta or a volcano. Most of the Earth consists of mountains, dry uplands, and deep forests. Dinosaurs that lived in these environments didn't get buried, they simply rotted away. These are the upland ghosts, millions of years of evolution that occurred on mountain ranges of which we have absolutely no record.
Paleontology has a sampling bias. We don't find the most common dinosaurs. We find the dinosaurs that lived in the most preservable places. 1. The coastal bias. If you look at a map of where dinosaurs are found, they cluster near ancient coastlines. We have a fantastic record of the dinosaurs that lived near the western interior seaway of North America. But what about the dinosaurs that lived 1,000 miles inland, in the heart of the continent? Because there was no rising water to deposit sediment and bury them, those inland species are ghosts. We might know they existed because of a few stray footprints, but their bodies are gone forever. 2. The size bias. It is much easier to fossilize a 40-ton Brachiosaurus than a 2-pound Compsognathus. Small bones are fragile. They're easily crushed by the weight of the earth or carried away by water. This means our view of the dinosaur world is top-heavy.
We see the giants, but the thousands of species of small bird-like feathered dinosaurs that likely filled the undergrowth are largely missing. We are seeing the elephants of the past, but we are missing the rabbits, the squirrels, and the foxes. 3. The temporal gaps. Evolution doesn't happen in a straight line. It happens in bursts. There are gaps in the fossil record, stretches of 5 to 10 million years where we have no fossil-bearing rocks. In those millions of years, an entire family of dinosaurs could have evolved from a small lizard-like form into a massive predator and then gone extinct, and we would never know. These are the lost chapters of the Mesozoic. In the world of paleontology, a ghost lineage is a scientific term for a gap in the fossil record that must have been filled by a living creature, even if we have never found its bones. 1. The connector species. Think of it like a family tree. We find species A in rocks dated to 150 million years ago. We find its direct descendant, species B, in rocks from 130 million years ago. There is a 20 million year gap between them. Logic dictates that for species B to exist, there must have been a continuous chain of thousands of generations in between. These are the intermediary ghosts. For 20 million years, these animals were walking, hunting, and breathing, yet we have zero evidence of their physical form. We can only predict what they looked like based on the traits of their ancestors and descendants. It is a haunting thought. There are entire groups of apex predators that lived for longer than humans have existed, and we don't even have a single tooth to prove it. 2. The phylogenetic shadow. When we use computer modeling to map the tree of life, cladistics, we often find branches that split off very early. For example, we might find a primitive feathered dinosaur and a modern bird. The branch where they split suggests a massive variety of bird-like dinosaurs should exist in the middle. We call these phylogenetic ghosts. We are looking at the shadow cast by a creature we cannot see. One of the greatest dark zones in our knowledge is the mountains of the Mesozoic. Today, mountains like the Rockies or the Alps are home to highly specialized animals, snow leopards, mountain goats, and golden eagles. Did the Cretaceous have mountain specialists? Almost certainly. 1. The erosion trap. The problem with mountains is that they are erosional environments. On a mountain, gravity is always pulling material away. Rocks are being broken down and washed into valleys. Fossils need depositional environments where dirt piles up. Because mountains are constantly being worn down, any dinosaur that died on a mountain peak was washed away, crushed, and destroyed. 2. The high-altitude specialists. Imagine a dinosaur evolved to live in the cold, thin air of a mountain range. It might have had thicker coats of feathers than any lowland T-Rex. It might have developed specialized climbing claws for steep rock faces, much like a mountain goat's hooves. It might have had a higher metabolism to cope with the cold. We will likely never find these animals. Their entire world was built on ground that was destined to be erased by the wind and rain. They are the summit ghosts, creatures of incredible adaptation that lived in a world we can only imagine. If mountains are erased by erosion, jungles are erased by chemistry. Today, the most biodiverse places on Earth are the tropical rainforests. The Cretaceous was much warmer than today, meaning massive jungles covered huge portions of the globe. The acidic soil. In a rainforest, the leaf litter and constant rain create highly acidic soil. When an animal dies in a jungle, its bones don't just rot, they dissolve. The minerals in the bone are leached out by the acid before they can ever be replaced by stone, permineralization. The ghost biodiversity. We know from modern biology that for every one species in a desert, there might be 50 in a jungle. This means that for every triceratops we find in the dry floodplains, there were likely dozens of related species living in the deep inland jungles of South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia. Because we have almost no Lagerstätten, exceptional fossil sites, from Cretaceous jungles,
we are missing the most colorful, most varied, and most bizarre dinosaurs of all. We are looking at a black and white photo of a world that was actually in 4K Technicolor.
Our view of the past is biased toward the big and heavy. If you are a 30-ton sauropod, your femur is a massive, dense block of bone that can survive millions of years. But if you are a microdinosaur, a creature the size of a crow, your bones are hollow, thin, and as fragile as glass. The ghost undergrowth. We have recently discovered dinosaurs like Microraptor and Yi Chi, the batwing dinosaur, only because of very specific lakebed deposits in China. If those specific lakes hadn't existed, we would have no idea that dinosaurs ever experimented with bat-like flight. How many other experimental small dinosaurs were there? Dinosaurs that lived like woodpeckers, dinosaurs that burrowed underground like moles, dinosaurs that lived entirely in the canopy of trees, never touching the ground. These small creatures are the fragile ghosts. Their records were crushed by the weight of the very sediment that was supposed to save them. While we have a decent record of marine reptiles like Mosasaurus or Plesiosaurus, these fossils mostly come from shallow, epicontinental seas, places where the water was relatively still and the bottom was soft mud. But the Mesozoic oceans were vast, and the open, deep blue water remains a total mystery. 1. The destruction of the seabed. There is a geological process called subduction. The Earth's tectonic plates are constantly moving, and oceanic crust is eventually pushed down into the mantle and melted. Most of the ocean floor from the time of the dinosaurs has already been recycled by the Earth. This means that if a massive, specialized deep-sea reptile lived in the middle of the Panthalasic Ocean, its final resting place was literally melted into magma millions of years ago. 2. The pelagic mysteries. In the modern ocean, we have the giant squid and the oarfish, creatures that rarely see the light of day. It is almost certain that the Cretaceous oceans had their own versions of abyssal ghosts. Were there giant, soft-bodied cephalopods with no shells that left no fossils? Were there ichthyosaurs that adapted to the crushing depths of the midnight zone, becoming bioluminescent? In paleontology, a Lazarus taxon is a species that disappears from the fossil record for millions of years, only to suddenly reappear much later. The Disappearing Act. Imagine a group of dinosaurs that we see clearly in the Jurassic period. Then, for 40 million years, they vanish. Not a single bone, not a single tooth. We assume they went extinct. But then, in the late Cretaceous, a nearly identical species appears. Where were they? They were in the ghost zones. They were surviving in those mountains, jungles, or isolated islands that we mentioned earlier. They lived in the blind spots of our paleontology. They are ghosts simply because they lived in places where we aren't looking, or where we can't look. The Coelacanth lesson. The most famous example of this isn't a dinosaur, but it proves the point: the Coelacanth. For years, scientists thought this fish went extinct at the same time as the T-Rex. We had no fossils of it for 66 million years. Then, in 1938, one was caught alive off the coast of South Africa. The Coelacanth was a ghost for 66 million years. It lived in deep water caves where fossils don't form. If a fish can hide for 66 million years, how many families of dinosaurs did the same?
We call them dinosaurs, but we are really just looking at skeletons. A skeleton is only a fraction of an animal. The ghost features. Think of a rooster or a turkey. If you only had its skeleton, you would never know it had a red, fleshy comb or a wattle. You would never know a desert camel has a hump of fat. Did T-Rex have display sacs on its neck that inflated like a balloon? Did Triceratops have long, hair-like bristles or colorful skin patterns we can't see? These are the soft tissue ghosts. Unless we find a mummy, like the Boreal pelta or the Dakota Edmontosaurus, we are guessing the paint job of an animal based only on its chassis. The missing organs. We also face the ghost anatomy of the inside. Did dinosaurs have specialized stomachs for fermenting toxic plants? Did they have complex air sacs that allowed them to sing like whales? Because soft organs rot first, the voice and the internal chemistry of the Mesozoic are ghosts that we can only recreate through computer simulations.
Islands are the engines of weird evolution. When a group of dinosaurs gets stuck on an island, they often shrink, dwarfism, or grow massive to survive limited resources. The Haight Island clue. In modern-day Romania, which was an island in the Cretaceous, we found Magurosaurus, a long-necked sauropod only the size of a horse. This was a shrunken giant. But how many other island ghosts were there? The Earth's sea levels were much higher back then, creating thousands of isolated islands in Europe and Asia. Each island likely had its own unique, mutant version of dinosaurs. Because islands are small and often have high erosion, the chance of finding fossils from a specific 10-mile-wide island is nearly zero.
To truly grasp the scale of the ghost dinosaurs, we have to move from biology to statistics. Paleontologists estimate that we have discovered roughly 1,500 to 2,000 species of dinosaurs. While that sounds like a lot, let's compare it to the modern world. Today, there are approximately 10,000 species of birds and 6,000 species of mammals living at the same time. The age of dinosaurs lasted for over 165 million years. If biodiversity then was even half as rich as it is today, there should have been hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of distinct dinosaur species throughout history. 1. The 1% rule. Mathematically, we are likely looking at less than 1% of the total diversity of the Mesozoic. For every Stegosaurus in a museum, there were likely 99 other species, some with sails, some with feathers, some with bizarre social structures that we will simply never name. These are the statistical ghosts. They aren't just missing bones. They are missing branches of the tree of life that we haven't even imagined yet.
Sometimes the ghost is sitting right in front of us, but we are blind to it. This is the problem of wastebasket taxa. For decades, if a paleontologist found a stray tooth or a plain-looking vertebrae, they would throw it into a general category like Megalosaurus or Iguanodon. We now know that many of these generic bones actually belonged to entirely unique, specialized families of dinosaurs. The technological exorcism. With new technology like CT scanning and synchrotron imaging, we are beginning to exorcise these ghosts. We are looking inside rocks without breaking them and finding tiny, delicate embryos or microscopic skin impressions. We are discovering that what we thought was one species was actually 5. The ghosts are beginning to speak, but they are whispering through grains of sand and pixels.
Why does it matter that we are missing 99% of the story? It matters because it humbles us. The lesson of humility. The ghost dinosaurs remind us that our planet is much more creative than our record-keeping allows. We often think of evolution as a slow, steady march toward progress and, eventually, humans. But the existence of these missing millions suggests that evolution is a chaotic, beautiful explosion of forms. There were experiments in nature, dinosaurs that lived like seals, dinosaurs that lived like monkeys, dinosaurs that may have been as social as wolves, that left no trace. 2. The preservation of mystery. In an age where everything is mapped by GPS and every animal is cataloged on Wikipedia, the ghost dinosaurs represent the great unknown. They remind us that the Earth still holds secrets that cannot be Googled. They are the unfossilized dreams of a world that existed long before we did.
As we close this investigation, look again at that museum skeleton. See it not as a complete picture, but as a single survivor. It is the one that was lucky enough to die in the right mud, at the right time, in a place where the Earth didn't melt its bones. The ghost dinosaurs are still out there. They are in the mountains that have since turned to dust. They are in the coal seams of the deep jungles. They are in the subducted plates of the ancient oceans. They are the silent majority of the Mesozoic. And though we will never see their faces or hear their sounds, their existence is what makes paleontology the most hauntingly beautiful science on Earth.
This dark, unexplored Simhoboku.
We spend our lives looking for answers in the stone, but sometimes the most important stories are the ones the stone refused to keep. The next time you look at the stars or walk through a deep forest, remember,
You are walking on a graveyard
Physically
of
removing the
ghosts,
ground where they once
and
stood.
most of them
This
we will
dynamic
never
process
find.
reshapes our planet.